I help high achieving women that are navigating life challenges, who are going through toxic cycles, breakups, and are looking to really find themselves and walk in their purpose. Everything that we go through is all tied, right? So the finances is always going to be affected when we are not rooted, when we're not grounded in who we are, when we're going through these cycles and these shifts. And so important for us to understand that every aspect, we may think that they are separate entities, but they all affect one another.
So often, so many people, they want everything to fit into a different bucket. They want like money to be over here and like maybe your lifestyle choices to be over here. And like they want all of these like separate, nice, neat little boxes. And like part of the reason the Financial Mastery Simplified, like that concept was so important to me is, first of all, not only does mastery look different for each and every one of us, right? Like on how we view money, how we want to utilize money, how we want to use it as a tool, etc., but also how it is not just one separate entity. I think on its face, because money seems to be a logical thing, we want it to be like this nice, clean cut, here's a list of rules or what you have to do, and that's it. And unfortunately, it's not that way.
No, not at all.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Financial Mastery Simplified. I am your host, Jacqueline or Jax Crider, and today we have Miss Ashley Meijer on with us. She is an identity coach, an amazing woman that helps people, women just like figure out like where they're at. And so welcome, Ashley. Tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do, why you're excited to be on the show today.
Thank you so much, Jax, for having me on the show. So as Jax mentioned, my name is Ashley Meijer, and I help high achieving women that are navigating life challenges, who are, going through toxic cycles, breakups, and are looking to really find themselves and walk in their purpose. I help them do that. I help them go from broken, lost to healing and whole so that they can walk in their purpose and live a life of impact, influence, and legacy.
I love that.
Yeah, and you said, okay, what was the next question? That was who I am and what I do.
No, more like, what are we excited to be on the show today, right? Like, I know that you like to talk about identity and like, yeah, how it shapes. And you and I were talking a little bit before the show specifically about, some of the identity shifts you may be experiencing like in major life changing situations, et cetera, right? And like how that looks for people, women specifically, and how we, in a lot of ways it affects money too, right? Like as you're having these shifts, because your ability to make money, your ability to track money or whatever, right? Like as we're shifting as people.
Yeah. So, well, I'm excited because of this conversation. I know when we initially spoke, everything that we go through, it's all tied, right? So the finances is always going to be affected when we are not rooted, when we're not grounded in who we are, when we're going through these cycles and these shifts. And so, I love just having the conversation and seeing how everything's interconnected. But today, I think it's so important for us to understand that every aspect, we may think that they are separate entities, but they all affect one another. And so it's important to have these types of conversations and getting to know ourselves, understanding the life challenges and transitions that we go through and how they affect the different aspects of our life. So yeah, I'm excited to just jump right into it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think that what you said is so important, right? I think that so often, so many people, they want everything to fit into a different bucket, right? They want like money to be over here and like, maybe your lifestyle choices to be over here. And like, they want all of these like separate, nice, neat little boxes. And like part of the reason the Financial Mastery Simplified, like that concept was so important to me is, first of all, not only does mastery look different for each and every one of us, right? Like on how we view money, how we want to utilize money, how we want to use it as a tool, etc., but also how it is not just one separate entity. It's not like, okay, how do we make money? And like, let's put that box over here. And then, oh, wait, okay, how do we, interlace this with everything else? It's all interconnected, as you stated. And that is such an important distinction, because I think on its face, because money seems to be a logical thing, we want it to be like this nice, clean cut, here's a list of rules or what you have to do, and that's it. And unfortunately, it's not that way.
No, not at all. And it reminds me, as you were speaking, it reminded me of, when I started to truly value my finances. I think I went through a period very early where I was great with money, and then life happened and I went through a very toxic relationship. And a part of my, what I thought would be my healing journey, was to just splurge. I had a good amount of savings. And so I spent the next 7 years depleting my savings traveling, right? And I didn't think about it because the money was there. I was working, I had owned businesses, and at no time did I think, well, if I don't work on myself, then I'm not gonna have money. Like, that was just never a thought process until I got the reality check during the pandemic, when my income completely depleted. Like, I had no source of income, and I was newly married, and I'm trying to figure out. And I had just really started resaving, right? Started saving again, and now the little that I had to go towards just making it through, because nobody knew how long this was going to last, how long the lockdowns were going to last. And going through that, I realized that these things are not separate. Yes, I was going through a breakup and I have money in the bank, but that did not take away from me being a responsible adult. And I had to deal with both of them. I had to face all of it head on because I was forced to. And so, as you mentioned, we like to think of these as separate boxes, but they're all interconnected. And we have to understand that the finances, especially the financial aspect of our life, is what funds almost everything else. And
Right.
so we have to make sure that that is in place, because if we go through difficult situations, we need to have something that we can fall. And if that is not in place, if we don't have the mindset to make sure that we are saving and making responsible decisions, and despite the turmoil, the inner turmoil that we may be going through with the different transitions throughout life, that does not take away from us being responsible adults. It may be mentally frustrating and mentally, a little difficult to even just focus on, but at the same time, we cannot treat it as separate.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and it's interesting that you were talking a little bit about your experience coming out of this toxic relationship, because so I dealt with a husband that was incredibly financially abusive. Like, so on its face, it didn't seem that way, right? Like when we got into the marriage, we had made the decision that he was going to handle most of the money, and I already had a lot of education in money. Like I grew up in a family where that was like a thing, and like so I had a good understanding of money. I also worked in a financial space. And so obviously it wasn't that I was ignorant on like how money worked. We just had made the decision, because I tend to be a little more of a spender, that he was going to handle this or whatever. But what that turned into was a level of financial control that was very abusive. I mean, I could not literally go to Target and so $20 without getting the third degree, right? And so now I come out of this marriage and I did have some savings, but not nearly as much as I should. But I was so angry that like the money that we had amassed had gotten basically blown, and he had taken a bunch of it out because I was taking money aside to pay the bills while we were going through the divorce and like handling the situation. And so he took the rest of it just for himself, didn't ask, just went ahead and took it. And so it created in me like this very frustration that like here I was the only one that worked, 18 out of 38 months of our marriage. And like I had basically nothing to show for it. And I had had such restriction. I hadn't been able to buy anything or do anything for myself for all these years of this time. And so I was just like, screw it. Like, I didn't care if I went into debt. I didn't care if I spent money like it's going out of style. It didn't really matter to me because I just was over it. I was over being stuck in this box that somebody had put me in, these constraints. And so I had a really negative, kind of relationship with money there for a minute because I was so frustrated. And so oftentimes I think when we're talking about identity and identity surrounding money, we forget like how much emotional charge gets placed around it based on how we were raised, what kind of relationships we've been in, right? What kind of scenarios we've been placed in. And financial mastery a lot of times is not whether you have money or you don't have money, or whether you can spend money freely or not spend money freely or whatever. All that is irrelevant. Financial mastery simplified, like what does that look like? That looks like I have an understanding of like what kind of relationship I hold with money. I understand what kind of mindset that I have, the things that may be broken about that mindset, I'm actively working on to fix, and I'm giving myself grace in the process, right? I'm actively saying, "Hey, there's definitely moments I'm not going to be perfect with it, right? But I have a path, I have an aligned, life decision of like what I want this to look like. And I'm going to follow that path and do the work to make sure, right? To be that responsible adult. Because for me, it's not about how much savings you have in your account or you don't have in your account, right? Because we know that the provision doesn't come from there, but knowing that you're in alignment with the choices that you're making, the way that you're actively spending it, that is what matters way more than anything else.
I love that you shared that because that's the heart of having a holistic approach to life, right? Because when it comes to mastering your finances, you touched on everything that affects every aspect of your identity. So, in order to even know what your relationship is with money, know all of the things that you mentioned just now, you have to know who you are. You have to know what your values are, what your standards are. What you have to know what your life is rooted in, right? And so for me, and I know for you, like our life is rooted in God, right? And so we know what scripture says about money. We know what scripture says about who we are called to be, and we're called to be good stewards, not just of our finances, but of every aspect of our life. And in order to do that, we have to know who our identity is rooted in and who we are called to be. And so when we read scripture, scripture tells us our identity. We get to work on that. We get to embody that. And when we embody that, everything else begins to align because now you know who you are. You know that you are called to be an excellent steward of everything that's entrusted to you. So you are going to make sure that your alignment with your finances, your relationship, the mindset that you have towards it, everything is going to fall in place and you're going to do the work. You're going to do the work to become a better steward of your finances, of again every aspect of your life, but specifically as we're talking about your finances. And so it's all rooted in identity, knowing who you are, knowing whose you are. And I just I get excited about this because I see the disconnect all the time when people speak. It's like, okay, this is what's happening. This is what's happening in my life as it pertains to my income. I'm not making enough money. I'm not doing as well as I expected to be doing at this age and, at this point in my life. And I was there, right? I was there for a really long time because, as you mentioned, your husband was financially abusive. And my husband, my ex, well, that situation that I'm in right now. We're, in the process of going through our divorce. But he started to become that way when he realized that my income was depleted, when I was not making any money and my savings was dwindling. And so he started to use that against me. And I got to a point where I'm like, you know what, this is never going to be my life again. And how do I get through this? And situations happen. We had a lot of trauma in the relationship, and I had to stop and I had to look myself in the mirror and like, okay, Ash, I don't know this person I'm looking at, and you need to get back to who you were. And in doing the work, I realized, okay, I don't even know myself. I have no clue what I like because I lost myself in the relationship. I lost myself trying to be somebody else. And so I had to get back to just the simple things, going through the self discovery. And then I started reading my word again, and I started seeing what God said about me, and I started doing the deep inner work, right? And it is that path that got me to realize, well, you have a very poor relationship with money because it's one of your emotional triggers, right? Not triggers. What do we call it? It's one of those things that you use to cope, right? It's a compulsion. You spend when you're feeling sad. You spend when you feel inadequate. You spend to make yourself feel better, and that is not good, right? And so now I had to work on that relationship. I had to work on that. But now, because I know who I am, I know that I'm called to be an excellent steward. Now I can prioritize that in every aspect, including my finances. I have to budget. I have to be disciplined. I have to be consistent. I have to, not give in to the compulsion of wanting to spend when I feel bad or I feel sad or I feel like I have to prove my worth, because I don't. I know who I am. I know who I'm rooted in. I know what he says about me. And so there's nothing anybody else can say about me that'll cause me to fall out of character and to blow money foolishly. And so, with that said, I've limited my travel. I used to travel at least 11 times a year. I think I've traveled once this year, right? And
Yep.
is because my identity is not rooted in where I am. It's rooted in who I am and whose I am, and I don't have to prove my worth based on the amount of flights that I take.
Stay tuned. We'll be back right after this message from our sponsors.
Imagine having the power to control your financial destiny, no matter where you start. Welcome to the Financial Mastery Simplified course and resource platform, where financial education is tailored to your unique journey. We cover everything you need, from basic budgeting and saving strategies to advanced investing and retirement planning. Learn at your own pace with lessons that match your level of experience. Whether you're a beginner or looking to enhance your financial knowledge, join our community of learners and benefit from shared insights and expert guidance. The Financial Mastery Simplified course and resource platform equips you with the skills and confidence to take charge of your financial future. Ready to master your finances? Enroll in our courses today at the Financial Mastery Simplified course and resource platform. Start your path to financial independence now.
Visit us at fms.tips and fms.college for more information.
Hello and welcome to PBJ Mortgage, where your home ownership dreams become reality. Today, we want to share why choosing PBJ Mortgage is the right choice for your home financing needs. At PBJ Mortgage, we're built on a foundation of values that drive us every day. Our commitment to educate, empathize, and empower our clients sets us apart in the mortgage industry. Our clients are at the heart of everything we do, and their success stories speak volumes. With years of experience, our team possesses in-depth knowledge of the mortgage programs, ensuring you receive expert guidance and the best possible rates. We offer a diverse range of loan options to suit your unique needs, including conventional, FHA, VA, and more. No matter your situation, we've got a solution. At PBJ Mortgage, we pride ourselves on providing personalized service. Our dedicated loan officers are here to guide you every step of the way, making the process as smooth as making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. We understand that time is of the essence, which is why we've streamlined our processes for efficiency and convenience. Transparency and clear communication are paramount. You'll always know where you stand throughout your mortgage journey. Reach out to us today to set up a call to discover your options. If you're ready to make your home ownership dreams a reality, contact PBJ Mortgage today. Let us empower you during this exciting journey. Phone number 4-693-733-107 www.pbjteam.com. Visit our website or give us a call to get started. We look forward to helping you secure your future home. PBJ Mortgage, where home begins.
Thanks for your patience.
I think what people also forget too is like we live in consumer nation. So especially spending money, like it's sort of we've learned that is like the easiest way to get the dopamine hit, right? Like just go out and buy something. And it was interesting because what I did another podcast episode with Megan Anderson, and she and I were talking about how she made gobs of money, had the house, the nice house, the Porsche, like all the things, whatever. And then she went through a huge life shift. And so she sold everything and bought a van and is like traveling around the country and living in this van or whatever. And something that she said to me was really interesting. She's like, it's not just a shift about, whether I should spend money or whatever. And she's like, I don't have the space. So she's like, now before I buy like an outfit, a pair of shoes, whatever it is, I have to think about if this aligns with my values or whatever. And she's like, and in a weird way, it's very rewarding because it forces me to take the pause. And a lot of times that's what we're not doing because there's not anything inherently bad or evil about spending money, about utilizing money, right? It literally is just a tool. I talk about that all the time. That money is literally like a fake made up thing. Like we basically made it up. Like it doesn't actually intrinsically have any value. Like we're giving it value. And so how you utilize it, like it's just simply, are you using it for the betterment of like where you're following down the path in life, right? Like, are you
Exactly.
using it for that? Or is it a temporary emotional fix to fix what's something that is broken inside of you that you haven't wanted to address yet? Right?
Yeah.
Like, and we tie so much in it. And I'll give a very specific example. So like we were working here recently with a woman who just went through a very traumatic divorce, right? Lots of different styles of like abuse happening in this relationship. And the thing that she really, really, really wanted to hold on to in the divorce was the house. Okay. Makes perfect sense. This is very common for a lot of people. We've experienced this a lot, right? Because this is a big emotional tie, right? This is like where we make memories. This is where we bring, kids home from the hospital, first steps, like all of these, family events, like whatever's happening, right? Like this is like a house. And so for a lot of people, they want that emotional stability, whatever with the house. And the whole mortgage, all the things were in his name. Okay. And so she had to work to do a refinance to get this out of his name. And we work on that a lot with people. Okay, great. And come to find out, he had lied to her and he had not told her that there was this big lump sum of money that was like sort of hanging out on the back end because he hadn't been making mortgage payments that now changed the full financial picture. And she was so stressed out that she was literally letting it affect her health or whatever because she was tying money so emotionally. And I told her, I was like, you've got to disconnect from that. Like, I get it. I'm not saying that you can't be pissed off that he screwed you like out of this amount of money and you could potentially even deal with that like after the fact. But right now, the focus has to be on helping you reset and find your new identity, your space outside of this, outside of the trauma and the pain or whatever. And this is just a transaction. You need to disconnect your identity from this place. And I know how hard that is. It's really hard for people to understand and be able to do. But again, sometimes we have to remember that part of financial mastery is like seeing what's broken, like on the inside, dealing with this, and then disconnecting and saying, okay, this is just a tool. Like more of this can be made, more of this can be lost. Like this is just the vehicle. Because so oftentimes we put all of the onus on the vehicle of like, oh, it's the money that's
Yeah.
screwing me over. Money is evil. Money is this, money. No, it has nothing to do with that. Like you're putting things and projecting it onto that money. And it's very, you're very able to detach, but you have to force yourself to do it. You have to come to the realization, make the awareness of like, this is what's happening, and then be able and willing to detach and see, okay, what is actually really happening here? And I was able to articulate to her, it's because it's an emotional tie to him. This is like this last thing, and we've got to sever this. We've got to have this be done for you so that you emotionally can just take a breath and like put it away. That's so super important, and you have to do that. And people just have to understand it is a huge component when you're dealing with financial mastery and identity both, right?
Yeah. It reminds me of I'm studying to get a degree in clinical mental health counseling. And one of the things that we've been learning about is the anxiety cycle. And so with the anxiety cycle, there's a trigger, then there's an intrusive thought. And the third thing is the attachment to meaning, which causes the anxiety. And so, as you're mentioning, the attachment to the meaning that she gave to the money is what's causing a lot of the frustration. And it's what happens in our life. We give money a meaning that may not necessarily be accurate. And now we're living or making decisions based on this meaning that we've attached. So I love the fact that you talk about the detachment, having to detach. Yes, see it for what it is, but is what you're looking at, what the meaning that you're giving it, is it truth or is it just something that you've made up in your head? Like, because this does not have to be the reality that you're living in, because you can detach that meaning from it. So I love that you shared that. I have a client that I'm working with, and man, wow, when it comes to her finances, like that's a big struggles she has. And so she has accountability partners, which are great, that help her every month. They go over the finances. She goes over her budget, and it helps to keep her on track, because a lot of her identity was rooted in how well people saw her. And so she would spend money, she would go outside of her budget to just make herself feel as if she's serving people, so people could feel as if she's a good person. And so sometimes we have to does you spending change the fact that you're a good person? Spending something on someone change the fact that you're a good person? No. If you're a good person, you're a good person. You don't have to spend money on them to make yourself or make them think that you're a good person. And so the people pleasing aspect she had to really break away from. But I love the fact that she has accountability in this area that causes her to now have to think about, right? You talk about making that pause, think about, okay, what is the reason, or why am I spending this money? Is this because I want to do this? Is this in alignment with the budget that I've created? What meaning am I attaching to this if I spend this? Because like you said, it's nothing wrong with spending it, but it's the meaning that you put behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree. And I love that you shared that, because I think that we have, first of all, valued money above all else. And in fairness, I mean, we're talking about America. It is consumer nation, right? It is a very, driven society by, like, you know what I mean? Like, we have to have industry, we have to be spending money or whatever for like that cycle to work. And so then what happens? It means that we unnecessarily place a lot of value on this tool. And it's not that there, again, is anything inherently wrong with having some value in that tool, because money it's an incredibly powerful tool, right? It's why you shouldn't believe that money is the root of all evil, because it's not. Like, having more money, in my opinion, doesn't make or break how you are as a person. It is an amplifier usually, right? It's so
Exactly.
It's going to take your heart and like where your heart's at, it's going to amplify whatever is in there and make it bigger and bolder, right? And so we see it as this, like, okay, money is not something that should be focused on or whatever. No, it is an important part, but again, as much as it is interconnected, you also still have to disconnect from it too, right? Like, this is where you do have to separate it out, put it in its own box or whatever, because it will create, some mental health stuff. It will create like some identity stuff. It will create some of these things, but you don't have to allow it to. And I'll give you my literal personal example. So I do have a lot of education surrounding money. I do have a lot of understanding about money, right? From a professional aspect, from the way that I was raised, from the fact that we had conversations around the dinner table about money and where my parents were at with money, how they were spending it, how they were making it, all of the different things. And when this big, crazy house situation transpired, and so for those of you who maybe have never listened to my podcast before, my husband and I own this big, expensive luxury property. And as our finances were starting to kind of dwindle because of multiple situations, our daughter being born 8 weeks, 2 days early, spending 47 days in the NICU, like all these crazy situations, our industry starting to slow, things like this, we made the financial decision to go ahead and sell the house. Sounds good on its face. Oh, wait. It goes under contract, and we don't know if it was the inspector, the agent, the buyer. We don't know who it was. They leave a half bath water running, runs for 3.5 days, floods the house, is over $500,000 of damage to the house. Basically, damn near bankrupts us. So now I have a choice, right? I mean, think about this for a minute. I teach about money. I share about money. I help people with money, right? I mean, talk about imposter syndrome, talking about feeling like you're a failure on every front, right? From like the personal aspect, the business aspect, you name it, you feel like a utter failure. And I just had to know that my identity was not tied into that yes, this horrible situation happened, but that the situation was just the situation. And I can't tie my worth to it. I can't tie the fact that I can't do good in the world to it. I can't tie any of that, right? Like, I have to make the decision that I now can use this to fuel and share my story and help others with this, as opposed to the opposite. It could have decimated me. It could have destroyed who I am, what I represent, and everything about me as a person, I chose to not let it be so. Why? Because I was willing to do the deep work. I was willing to know where my worth was. I was willing to do those things. But that's not necessarily easy, but I will tell you it is possible. So if you're going through one of these huge major life transitions, be it divorce, job loss, right? Maybe you're stepping out on your own, you're going from a corporate environment to being self-employed, or whatever this is, whatever this is looking like for you. The truth is that you have to understand that no matter how much money is in your account or not, first of all, you can achieve financial mastery, and it isn't your identity and it doesn't define who you are as a person. Sometimes it's just literally the circumstance that you find yourself in that moment. And there may not have been as much to control as you would have liked. And so you can't go crying over spilt milk and being upset that these scenarios happened. You simply have to continue to step forward one aligned decision at a time, and that's all you can do.
Yeah. And I'd say, really just stop and look at what your relationship is with. I think a lot of times we don't stop and think about those things, right? So along with, everything that you mentioned, I do think that inner work, that introspection is key. It's fundamental to truly seeing where you're at and seeing what your next steps are going to be. I don't, you talk about the pause. We don't pause enough. We don't pause long enough, or we let the world dictate to us who we should be when it comes to how we spend and how we manage our finances. And just doing that work and really going within it, because again, everyone's situation is different, everyone's relationship is different. What you may value, I may not value. And so I get to really sit down and do the work. And so if you're watching this, you get to sit down and really ask yourself, like, what is my relationship with money? What are my values surrounding it? And how can I align the two?
Absolutely. Well, and as we're kind of coming to a close here, I know that you have something that you'd like to kind of offer the audience. So tell them, like, basically what that looks like, where they can find you so they can connect with you deeper, especially if they are going through one of these shifts, right? If they are looking for some identity, coaching.
Well, thank you so much. This was a great topic. I know we could talk for more time, and I'm excited for the next conversation. But if you're looking to really just dive deep and do the inner healing work, and really just figure out where you're at, who you are, who you want to be, what are your next steps, and how to fill that gap, then you can find me at amajerinsight.com. I do offer a 15-minute consultation call where we get to, just see where you are and how we can work together. And you can find me at a major insight on all platforms.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And hopefully you guys found this episode helpful, just to kind of give some structure to, identity, especially surrounding money, especially when you're potentially going through some major changes, etc. And again, thank you so much for being my guest. And I hope we see you next time in another episode of Financial Mastery Simplified.